Well, hello, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Artist Blueprint. My name is John Henry Soto, and as always, I'm welcomed. I'm here, and as always, I'm here with George Batista, who is here with us this evening, and we're doing a show today about Mr. Rick Beato. I'm a huge Rick Beato fan, and we're going to talk a lot about this guy because I feel like, and the title is maybe people might think it's a little dramatic, but I think he's starting something that is revolutionary and it's important, and I think it's saving music. So we're gonna dive into that today. Before that, we as always we have our sponsor that we want to give some love to. So George, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let's go.
Thank you, sir. So, the artist blueprint, or whatever we call this show, is brought to
That's some
is,
earlier conversation.
is brought to you by Wellness Resources, a family-owned and operated nutritional supplement company, providing the highest quality, clinically formulated supplements since 1985. I will get through this. Find out why they are absolutely amazing supplements. My wife and I take them every day, and it makes us feel great. Check them out at myvitaminresource.com. And of course, you always get your savings. We always attach the savings to it. And because you are viewers and listeners, you will get not only free shipping if you enter the promo code Artist Blueprint at checkout, free shipping for that. Then on top of that, you take advantage of their each month they have a code promo where they do 25% off. And this month, it's 25% off their longevity supplements only for June. Their longevity supplements. So we're talking about the brain. We're talking about your cellular health. Fantastic stuff. Again, brain protector is a great one. Physitin is a great one. So yeah, wellness resources supplements, unbelievable stuff. Again, check them out at myvitaminresource.com. And
All
by
right.
the way, on top of that, John and I were started to write a song about that, and we wrote a little bit of a song regarding Physitin, and this is how it started.
Visiting, visiting,
Let's get Physitin,
visiting,
Physitin.
visiting, visiting.
So it's not exactly complete yet. We're still in the process,
He's
but
working.
it's a work in progress.
You know what
Yes.
I think it needs? I think it needs a bridge.
Yeah, I agree. I
It needs a
agree.
bridge. I think the chorus needs to be tightened up a little bit. The verses need to be shortened. We got to get it down to 320.
Mm-hmm.
We need a violinist. We need a fiddle player in there. We need a steel. I think
I think we should reach
we're
out
on
to.
our way.
I think we should reach out to Rick Beato
Yeah, Rick will
to
definitely be able
help
to
with that.
produce that for us.
We should definitely, by the way, talk about who he is for those folks who don't know.
Yes. Do you want to actually give a
No, you
little
could.
background on it?
Yeah, you could actually do it probably
Okay.
better than I can. But
So Rick Beato is he's become this a YouTube personality phenomenon, in my opinion, anyway. He's I'm going to read here what I have here. Multi instrumentalist. He plays piano. He plays bass, guitar really well. He's a music producer and an educator.
yes.
Since the early 1980s, he has worked as a musician, songwriter, audio engineer, and record producer, and has lectured on music at several universities. Beato owns and operates Black Dog Sound Studios in Georgia, and he's produced bands like Need to Breathe and Parmalee, and
Normally.
Shine Down,
Mhm.
which is a really great band. Um, so I mean, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I know. I mean, you can obviously go onto his Wikipedia page or onto his website, which is rickbeato.com, and check him out. But we're going to say something?
No, I was going to say that band Parmalee is where he
Um,
had his first #1 record with
mm,
them.
it's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So he did a lot of that. He's very, very knowledgeable. He was just a teacher as well, a music teacher, professor, and very knowledgeable in music. But here's the thing about Rick Beato brought to uh, to the table or to the world is that he was able to take his knowledge of music and convey it in a way that was easy to understand, that was entertaining, and that also showed the love of music, the love that he has for music.
Right.
Because that really, to me, is the main reason why people gravitate to Rick Beato's show, is because
Correct.
he's so passionate about music.
Right.
He started a series called "What Makes a Song Great," and he would do these. He would take these classic songs that we all know, and he would break them down and take out certain things and show the drums and show the key, what the guitar did at this part, and show how the harmonies worked, and really give you a full education on how these songs were put together. And you learn to not only appreciate that song more and the artist, but you also learn to appreciate music in general. Like
Correct.
when I started listening to these, what makes a song great, I started listening to the same band or different bands completely differently, listening to the background, what was happening with the vocals, what was happening with the guitars, how were the guitars overlaid, one another. And I think that was really, for me anyway, really an easy time to go to YouTube where you don't feel like you're just wasting time.
Yes.
You're getting educated on by someone who really, really does care and knows, as they say, he knows his shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he really does know.
And it's not just about the technical piece because he does what's great about him is that he does both. He does the really technical stuff. He'll break down a
Yeah.
song and the chord structures, like you said, and all these types of things, and what makes that song great, and all this. And sometimes, if you're, if you don't know music or if you're not a musician necessarily, you may get a little bit lost in what he's saying in it. But because he gets real technical, but at the same time, he'll also do just a music list,
Right.
and he'll do the top 20 songs on Spotify or this
Right.
artist compared to that artist. So
Yeah.
if you're
Or
just a,
yeah.
a person who loves music, and let's say you love an artist, you can get educated just by what he's saying. You realize, oh wow, this
Yeah.
person is here on Spotify and on Spotify, so he's got that part of it too, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
and he also does cool things like the top 20 drum
Yes.
fills,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
guitar openings for
Yep.
songs, like the
Yep.
top 20 guitar openings for songs and stuff like that. Is just like, for, I mean, we're music lovers, so we're geeks and we eat that stuff up, so I watch everything. And but then something happened where, well, let's, I don't want to break into that. I'm going to just stick with the what he brings to the table as far as the education, right? So I think one of the things that has happened in the last 30 years, maybe 30, 40 years, maybe, is that music education, as we all know, has been always cut, from schools. It's been a difficult, there was all these programs to fund instruments for schools and to all these things. And you start thinking about it, it's like trillions of dollars being, you know, paid to our school system here. And I'm like, how is the arts the first thing to go? They somehow think that math and science is more important than music and art.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I am completely the opposite.
Right.
And it's been proven now. I mean, it's been proven now, and there's studies that you can go find. It's why Baby Mozart is such a popular thing now, where people play Mozart for kids because it does something to the brain, where it stimulates the brain and it makes them, develop faster. And there's all these studies you can research on your own. But music and art in general is extremely important. So it should have, you know, algebra, which I've yet to use. I don't know about you, George, how much algebra you have in your daily routine,
Yeah.
but I've rarely used any algebra, and I've never used a protractor. I'll be honest with you. I've wanted to, because I wanted to jam it in someone's neck if they piss me off, but never have I. Imagine they gave us these sharp protractors in schools. I was in the South Bronx, so, they were like
That's true.
giving me this. All right. you know. But there's so many things that the educational system is feeding our kids that are is completely unnecessary. Here are the things that I and we're gonna this show, if you haven't been on this show,
So if you don't know, yeah.
we sometimes go into we'll but anyway we're talking about Rick Beato, but the reason is because of education, right? And there's a couple of things that you can really remove from education from this current curriculum, and no one it would actually improve, right? There's a couple of things you can remove. I'm not going to mention what they are because there are people who are going to think like, well, you can't remove that, but I can tell you what you can add that will really provide value. One, money. How does money work? Did we learn about money in school? How
Mm.
to open up a bank account? Do you know how to open up a bank account when you got out of school? When you got out of college, some people didn't know how to open up bank accounts to this day. What's a mortgage? How does a mortgage work? How does a loan work? If I go to college and I get a student loan, how am I going to pay that back? What is interest rate? Can someone explain to me what
Mm.
is interest rate? These are things that we don't. Nutrition. George can give you a whole show on that. Nutrition. What are vegetables? What do vegetables do to the body? How do what's a carb? What's sugar? Is sugar good for your body? Of course, they're not going to do that because of they're invest. A lot of the funders are these major corporations that create this toxic garbage food that didn't exist 100 years ago. Let me tell
Right.
you something. If the food did not exist 100 years ago, don't eat it.
Right, exactly.
Don't eat it. Nobody was growing Oreos in the ground
That's
100 years
true.
ago. You know
True.
what I'm saying? So that's the frustration part of it. But the arts, immediately they cut the arts.
Yeah.
A lot of these programs. So that's something that I think Rick Beato and why I think he's so important to what to music and the future of music is because he's bringing it back again, but he's doing it in a way that um, is it has both elements to it, like George mentioned. It has the technical part of it. So if you want to go into deep technical stuff, he's got the videos for it. You go onto his page, his YouTube page, Rick Beato's YouTube page, and he has all that stuff on there. If you go to his page, he also has the fun stuff. What makes this song great.
Hmm.
He also has the real fun stuff, like the greatest guitar solos in music. The top 20 guitars, guitarists ever. Things like that. And he'll give examples, and these are not a lot of times they're not his lists. They're lists that he gets. They're from major publications based on polls and writing surveys and all that stuff. But he makes it very entertaining. So you can go there and you can get whatever it is that you're looking for in music. If you're passionate about music, you want to learn about guitar, chord. He did this great thing on chord voicings,
Yeah.
and it was just, and he went into like all these different voicings and how to find them in the certain key that you're in, as opposed to just trying to guess. It's like, well, where do they fit in to this, into the music structure, and he would show you,
Yeah.
and that to me is really where the future of music should and is going. And I think there are others like him doing
Yeah.
stuff like this. There are others. Just an honorable mention would be Tim Pierce, who I'm
Hmm.
a big fan of Tim Pierce as well. And Rick and Tim do videos together, and when they get together,
Right.
it is just a ball. I'm like in heaven when they both get together talking about whatever. Um, there's others that I can't think of right now, but there's a lot of them out there, and they all kind of know each other. And there's this group of, I would say, maybe a dozen, guitar real enthusiasts, but they have a tremendous love of music, where it's not work doing a YouTube video on how to show something.
Right.
It's just their love of it. You know what I mean? And that to me is where it lies.
But I think also his show or his channel. Another thing that it does is it provides the education, but it also makes the folks think, because even when you have the top 25 or the greatest, guitar solos or whatever it is, it it may not be exactly what you thought it was, right? And let's say you love music, and you know what? I don't agree with them. Maybe I think this one is better than that one. Okay, so it actually starts conversation,
Mhm.
or even dialogue between, okay, let's debate who's the better this and who's the better that. Okay, which eventually creates critical thinking, because now you're actually thinking for yourself. No, this is what I believe. I believe this is better, whatever, and which is a complete difference from what the educational system shows you, because they don't show you how to critically think, right? And really, that's what art and music does, right? Because art and music, in general, gives you the basics of how to do it, right? The X's and O's, but then you have to take it to the next level and create,
Correct.
right? You have to take what you learn and create, which means that you have to be critical, you have to be creative, and you have to make something out of that. And again, the educational system doesn't feel that that's valuable, because they're saying, we really don't want critical thinkers. We don't want people to be creative, because if
Right.
they're too creative, they may be, way out of the system and actually do something that's gonna create something huge. We want them to be like this. We want them to be this
So
way.
they need to be. Yeah, I mean, we can go. That's a whole other.
But I mean, it's a whole nother conversation. But what I'm saying, it's part of it. But
Yeah, yeah,
what I'm the point of that his channel creates that. Even for me as a musician, and I'm a creative guy from day one on this planet. I've just always been. So his watching his channel and watching those lists and and comparing things, and even just his technical stuff, makes me think.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't look at it that way.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, I didn't see that. And I love that stuff, because it brings my thinking to another level.
yeah. Well, I was watching. He has two channels, by the way. He has Rick Beato, the one that I just showed there, and he also has a Rick Beato
Beato
2.
2.
Yeah, and there he did. I was watching there, which I was. This is why. This is why I love watching Rick Beato on, because I'm watching. Remember the band Winger?
Yes.
Did you see that video, that interview by any chance?
I don't know if I saw that one.
Okay. So Kip Winger was on his show.
Right.
Now Winger was one of these bands from the '80s that was sort of the hair band, and sort
Yeah.
of like the band that I guess maybe got a few knocks because of their music or whatever. But I'm watching this interview and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He's interviewing Kip Winger, and you know, I don't know anything about Kip Winger. I
Right.
only knew that was the band, and it was Winger, it was Warrant, there was Cinderella,
Poison.
yeah, these kind of bands that I knew from that era. But what I did not know was that he is classically trained.
Mm.
He wrote, you know what? Rather than I'm gonna actually real quickly, because whoa, that was loud. That's I'm gonna have to mute this real quick, because
Explosion.
well, it's somebody who's speaking, who's a political person that I don't want to trigger anybody.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You know how that goes. Let's not trigger the children. Hold on one second.
Must have been a
So
clip of Nixon.
no, it wasn't. Anyway, so I'm gonna play a little bit of it. Hopefully they won't take this down.
Oh,
I'm gonna play a little bit. There's no music or anything, but it's something, and I want George to hear it for the first time, because it is just very, very, very surprising. So hang tight here. I'm going to share this. All right. Can you see that there?
yes.
All right. So, oops. Okay. I muted it. So I'm going to unmute it now. Go back a little bit. And here we go.
We've known each other since, I'd say, 2002 or so. I met him here in Atlanta when he was doing a solo guitar show, playing his own arrangements of Winger songs that were completely beautiful, like the opening tune that you heard. They were all reharmonized, and I was blown away. I mean, really, I couldn't believe it. And Kip is a really serious classical composer. He's written a ballet entitled Ghost. It was premiered by the Tucson Symphony back in 2009. He's composed a 4-part work entitled Conversations with Nijinsky. That was recorded by the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra and nominated for a Grammy in Best Composition category back in 2017. He's written an opera, he's written numerous chamber music pieces, and has a violin concerto that was commissioned by the Nashville Symphony to be premiered next May 2025. He was also in a band called Winger. I want you to listen to this with an open mind. Kip has a lot of incredibly interesting things to say.
So
Wow.
I would never have known that
Yeah, that's true.
had I not watched that. You know, you think of this guy is an incredibly accomplished musician, and that is what we need to hear. We need to hear stories like that. You know, where else would Kip Winger have a platform of 3 point something million followers, or whatever Rick has on his two channel, 500,000 or a million, whatever, to listen to Kip Winger? You know, it's like to learn about this amazing musician that I had no idea. I'm gonna go now and listen to his music.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna go now listen to his solo stuff and go back and even listen to the Winger stuff, because I listened to it with whatever I got. What do you call it? Like, you know, you get influenced by those around you to
Yes.
think that something is just not cool anymore, or not
Correct.
cool, or whatever. And then you go with the pack, you know, and I used to go with the pack, you know,
Yeah.
not always. I mean, I was always a hothead, but I would always, you know, I went with the pack in that respect.
Right.
I went with the pack, and I did not really see the value. You know, I thought it was just another hairband, dime a dozen, they went out. But you know, watching this video just completely blew me away. So this is a really important an important thing for us to really to have in music, is somebody like Rick Beato, and I want more people to come out um and do this.
Well, it's like the Billy Sheehan thing, right? Billy Sheehan, who and played with Mr. Big. Back then, Mr. Big was one of those bands, right?
Yeah,
And automatically at that time, I put him into that category. I was
yeah,
like,
and
okay,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
was one of those guys,
yeah.
whatever. Not realizing how good and how accomplished a musician he really was.
Yeah. Well, even Mr. Big, you know, the problem, and I'm not saying not the problem, but there's certain time that certain bands will get a hit record that doesn't fully represent them as
Yes,
musicians. You know, it
correct,
represents a
correct.
great song that they put together, and they
That's
just
right.
happen to go, you know, extreme has more than words. And Mr. Big had I will always be. Well, I can't remember the song, but
I'm the
um,
one who
I'm the one
wants
who
to. Yeah,
will be with you, right? So these are big hit records that really were. But then you watch these bands live, and they are like fierce.
yes,
They are rock bands. I mean, Nuno, you know, Bencourt, who's one
Betancourt.
of the greatest guitar players ever, is
Hmm.
an extreme.
That's right.
And, you know, that was always a little bit challenging. Actually, Nuno was on Rick Beato,
Hmm. Yeah,
which leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, was that he started interviewing guests. He was, because his channel started getting a little bit more popularity, and he was doing these videos on these bands, you know, like what's the what makes this song great.
yeah,
There was a lot of other bands, famous bands, popular bands. Sometimes the band of the song that he was actually covering would listen to it, and would make comments, and that
right.
began a whole kind of a connection to him, where Rick now has interviewed. I mean, who's he interviewed? He's interviewed so many people, like
He interviewed Sting. He interviewed,
which was
uh,
really like the
which was one of his biggest. That was like his bucket list
yeah,
thing, you know.
that was like an amazing.
But a ton of great, artists. I mean, big,
Yeah,
big time artists.
yeah. I mean, I can go down here,
Michael
and
McDonald.
he just did. Yeah, Michael McDonald's a couple of months ago. He did George Benson.
Yes.
He did George Benson, which was great. He did Joe Bonamassa, which I've seen a lot of Joe Bonamassa interviews and stuff. That was a great one also. But you know, because you have a guy who's so educated, um, you know, he also did one. Actually, he did the police, the whole police.
Yeah.
He did Stuart Coppola, and he did Andy Sumner also. So he did all of the police. But that's the thing about Rick, is that he's so educated in
Yeah,
music that he's going to ask questions that you and I are interested in hearing.
that's right.
People aren't going to be like, so when you're touring, how do you get? Is it hard touring? Do you like the road? You like being on the road? Is the food like, things like that, and like, um, it just people get interviews and it's like, well, tell me, what was your inspiration for this song? I mean, and that's fine, you know what I mean? But I really want to hear what guitars that you use on this. What was did you use a pedal board? Did you go directly into the board? What amps did you use? You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
What mics? I want to go deep into like the actual recording process of what they would do. And one of the funniest conversations was that who he was talking about. He was talking to somebody who they wanted to get a sound. This was back in the day. They wanted to get a certain sound, so they grabbed a toilet paper roll and took all the toilet paper roll, and they just used the roll, and
Yeah, I did hear that one. Yeah, I
they just
forgot who it
recorded.
was.
I forgot who it was too, but that was like an amazing thing where you really you get to understand that you know back in the days you didn't know what they were using,
Yeah.
but Rick hears it, so he wants to ask, "What is that?" He says, "A toilet paper roll."
But you
It's
see,
like,
those are the story, and that's the part of it I love. I mean, the technical part is great too from the music perspective, but the stories,
yeah, the story.
because the stories behind what happened. Like one of my favorite episodes, which is a guy that I love to watch play, is Steve Lukather.
Oh yeah, I love Steve.
Great,
That was a great.
amazing guitar player with Toto, and just he played on a lot of the Michael Jackson stuff. But he was talking about those sessions, and he was talking about what went on in those sessions, and you felt like you're in the room
Yeah, because
and
he
he's
had
talking
no
about
idea.
and you had no idea that this happened, and Eddie Van Halen played on this, and all these things, and they weren't sure if this was going to work, and you're like, whoa, and then you hear the song and you never know
Yeah,
what went on. And also I learned that he had co-written some famous songs that were out there
yeah, yeah,
that I had no idea,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Famous ones. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's those are. Yeah, I love those stories too. Just on a side note with the Michael Jackson and Van Halen when he played on that, it was great to see Eddie Van Halen when he was being interviewed. Remember that when he talked about
Mhm.
the solo,
Yeah, yes, yeah,
and he's like, they called him up and they said, "Hey, we want you to play on Michael Jackson's record." And
yeah,
so they had a rule in the band that nobody was supposed to go play in other people's records while they were
right,
working and while they were
yeah.
touring. So then he was like, well, everybody was out of town, so he's like, who's gonna know that I'm playing on some black kid's record? He's like, no, I'm playing on some black kid's record. And that to be the biggest record
There,
of all time.
there you go.
Yeah, and a very popular guitar solo too. So I thought that was a hilarious story. But those are the kind of stories that you get from listening to. He also did one with Eric Johnson.
Mm,
Eric Johnson is one of my favorite guitar players. I have no idea what he's doing when I'm watching him, but he's amazing, and I love his playing. But he talked a lot about the technical elements of the soloing, but also the actual gear and stuff like that. It's another thing that I love when they go into the gear
yeah.
stuff. I'm
Hmm.
a gear geek and stuff. So, but yeah, I love that. So I think I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what the profound impact that music has in the world, how it influences not only individuals but societies. I mean, really, a song can change the world.
Yeah.
A song can influence people to. It hits you so deep. You feel so emotional when you hear something. There's
Hmm.
artists out there that, and I'm a I'm cheesy guy. What I mean, I'll listen to like ballads, and I'm the guy that now is clean from caring what anybody thinks, right?
Right, right.
And it's not for me. If I go from listening to a Barry Manilow song that I love and I'll play it for my kids, and I go listen to a heavy Van Halen or something new, the winery dogs that I listen to a lot also with Billy Sheehan,
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff is So I go back and forth because I don't listen to music, I absorb it.
Yes.
Like when I'm listening to music and somebody starts talking to me, it drives me bananas.
Yeah, same thing.
I have to stop it
Yeah, me too.
because
Me too.
I'm not going to listen to this song. If you've heard that song before, shut up. I don't care if I've heard this song a billion times. I'm listening to it now again because it's so good that I want to absorb it now. It makes me feel good. It brings me to a place.
And you're
So this
still
is the
married.
power. What was that?
You're still married.
And I'm still married somehow. Somehow I managed to stay married by being this way. But yeah, no, I stop it. And out of respect,
Yeah,
obviously,
sure.
stop it and be like, what? You know. But I think that it's important for people to know that the impact that music has, it's not just to fill up, MTV. Not that MTV plays music, but it's not to fill up your Spotify list. It's not the iTunes. It's not to, what I mean. It's not for that. It's really to influence society and to help lift society and to help people feel good and to sometimes it changes the viewpoints. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's also a cultural expression, right? And it preserves us as a right. We got salsa music, right? In Puerto Rican, I love salsa music, right? I love salsa music, and my favorite salsa singer is Gilberto Santa Rosa. I love Celia Cruz. I love Tito Puente. I mean, those were the people I listened to growing up. El Gran Combo and all that stuff. So I love Spanish, salsa music. That's our culture. I love the blues. That's the South. That's the South. That's the fields. That's the pain, the blues, right? I love the blues. I love rock. I love jazz. Again, coming from New Orleans and stuff. So it defines us also,
Hmm.
as people. So it's a much bigger thing than just put it on your Spotify.
Agreed. Agreed. There's something to be said for. I go through this because I kind of cycle through my music, and I realize there's some groups that I haven't heard or some artists that I never heard in a while, right? That I hadn't listened to in 6 months or a year even. And I'll put their album on, and I will completely forget why I don't understand why I didn't listen to this song like yesterday, because or the album yesterday, because I'm like, holy cow, I forgot how great this album is.
Yeah.
And then I'm hooked to that artist for like the next month, because it's like listening to it all over again.
Yes.
Right. And now I'm driving and I'm singing and I'm like, I'm into it, and I'm on the highway and I'm just belting out, and I can't remember. I'm like, holy cow, I even remember all the words to this.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, and then it brings you back sometimes to the first time you heard it, or what that song meant, years ago, whatever it was you were doing. So it's such an amazing thing.
And you and I have a connection to music even more profound than anybody else on the planet for me, because you and I listened to some of these bands together for the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam. Remember when you had the little cassette that didn't even have the full song?
That's
It
right.
just had bits and pieces of like.
I always say that you discovered Pearl Jam. Because they weren't on the radio at that moment. It was like a little EP or something,
EP that came out.
Yeah.
It was actually a compilation of snippets of songs.
Yes.
It had only, I think, a minute of Pearl Jam, a minute of I can't remember the other bands, but I think one of them was the Alice in Chains. I think it had like a minute of that, and it just
wasn't there Soundgarden on that too?
Soundgarden. It was like a minute of Soundgarden, and so I heard it. But I remember hearing the Pearl Jam. I think the song was Alive.
It was Alive, yeah.
Right, and I was like, man, what is this? This is like so incredible. It was like hearing Nirvana for the first time.
That's
where
right.
Kind of like this. What is this? So raw and so pure. It sounds so legit. But yeah. So for me, those moments, like that particular moment, I remember where we were standing.
Yeah.
The record player was right there. You were standing here. I was standing right here. And you put it into the cassette in.
Yeah.
Later we're listening, and we're like, wow, that's a great. We're like blown away. Same thing with like Led Zeppelin.
Oh,
George and I found Led Zeppelin I guess not. We were teens, so it wasn't like late, but it was like during our or at least you were a teen. I might have been 20.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, I was like, I was never really paying attention to Led Zeppelin for some reason. I was
Mhm.
listening to, early on was Santana and, Jose Feliciano and, BB King, Eric
Right.
Clapton. And those were because that was on the radio and that was kind of like mainstream stuff. But then I heard Led Zeppelin and just my whole world changed. I was
Blew
like,
me away.
what is happening here?
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what's going. Every song. I remember telling you the line. I was such a dork. But I remember telling you a line. I said, "Every song is good." I remember I said that to you in your room. I said, every song is good.
Yes, yes.
Like yeah, every song. And you go back and you listen to it, and yeah, it was. You can, it was a time of when music where you take an album and you put the album in and you just let it play.
Yes.
You know,
Especially when you get to, I mean, going back to Led Zeppelin, right? Was when you get to Zeppelin 4, Physical Graffiti.
physical graffiti
Holy cow. I mean, the
into the out.
musicianship on
What was
those
it?
things,
Into the
really.
outdoor.
Yes.
Uh,
Holy.
yeah, it's just an incredible. So the the importance of it and those moments that you associate with your past,
Yeah.
and now me especially, listening to some of the songs that I loved back then. We also because I think George and I were always similar in the way that if we liked the song, we liked the song. We didn't care if it wasn't cool
Right.
because we were not cool. I mean, we
Exactly.
weren't the cool guys. You know what I
Right.
mean? I was, I mean, maybe in school I was a little cool because I was,
Well, you ran the school, so it's a
right.
little different.
So George talks about those days,
He
but
was the principal, pretty much.
but as I got older and I started listening to music, it was like I don't like what you're listening to because it's popular now on the radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So people were listening to this stuff on the radio, and I'm like, I don't necessarily like that. Like, dance music was something that I didn't, I could roller skate to it,
Yeah.
like groups like Expose,
Yeah.
Cover Girls,
Right.
Noel,
George Lamond.
George Lamond,
Uh,
you know, what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like
Coro.
Coro. It wasn't that I didn't like those things, but I kind of knew that they were digitized
Yes.
synthetic drums. The vocals were good, they were good songs. They were very melodic and they were great to dance to
Yeah.
and great to roller skate to because I was
Yeah.
roller skating back in the days. And those that was to me was the only reason for that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But
Sure.
I didn't never thought that it didn't obviously replace rock and roll or anything because we still have rock is still huge and live musical instruments is still the important thing. That's why people want to go out to listen to artists. That's why it's such a huge. I'm in Music City, so I'm biased. It's all over the place, but even anywhere you go, I went to Phoenix, for something, and we went to a restaurant to go eat, and I get down to the guy on the keyboard, and he's like, I can't remember what he was singing, but it was like, because your kiss is on my list, because your kiss is on my list, and it was like an accent, but it was great. I mean, he had a keyboard, he had a little drum machine going, like a Casio, and it was like, boom, 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 boom. And it's everywhere. Everywhere
Yeah.
people want to hear live music, good or bad. Well, mainly good, but even if it's not that great, it's still entertaining. Where was I going with this? I have no idea.
But going back to Beato for a second, another thing that I wanted to bring up about him, and right, obviously the music education and stuff like that is just tremendous that he provides, and I think more people should be watching him, listening to him, and then, like I said, having that dialogue in the head of what he's saying and seeing if you agree and all this. But another thing that he does on that channel, by the way, is he talks about also the tough side of the music industry.
Yeah,
He also talks about what he went through.
the contract,
the contracts
maybe
and
the
the
system
tough
works.
days, and he even talks about going back into how he got into music school and how he was rejected and what happened and how he didn't know his path was going to go, so he gets into those stories
Yeah,
too, which are fantastic, because also it goes back to the piece where I talk about hearing the stories behind what's going on, right? You
right,
see the guy, you see that he's had a #1 album, you see that he's had gold records and all these things, but you don't know what happened back then. You don't know what
right,
he went through.
correct.
So I think that part of that education is also inspirational in the fact that he also, says those stories, which are also great too.
Correct. And I think it's the silence, right? It's the quiet moments that people don't really know about.
Yeah.
They people see the upfront, they see the performances, and they think that that's all there is. But there's those silent moments, those quiet moments to yourself where you have to sit there and kind of look at a blank piece of paper and try to figure out what you're going to create. And then we're in the business of judgment, right?
Yeah.
We're in the business to be judged, whether we like it or not. That's besides the point. It doesn't matter. The industry doesn't care about you or me or anybody. The industry operates on what's good and
Yeah.
what people gravitate to. Now, yes, there's a machine that has money behind it and garbage gets pumped out also. That's the stuff that we have to educate ourselves to be able to see through. This is why I think Rick Beato is so important, because I think he's able to show us the line of why is this song great, number one, and why are these songs not so good.
Right.
Now he never trashes anything, but there are times when he's playing stuff that I in my head I'm thinking, wow, that's like number 2 on the top whatever, or
Mhm.
number 5 on the top whatever. That song is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, terrible. And I'll say it because I got nothing invested in anything, and I'm just saying it, and I just think that it's really a tragedy. And he's able to get us to think, like you said earlier, to get us to to see for ourselves. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he talks about things like in a way that gets you to not just pay attention to the songs that you're listening to, but also pay attention to all of it. So this
Right.
way you can really see where it's coming from.
Exactly.
A good example is last night, my wife and I went down to a place called Dunlop, Tennessee. Population like 5,000. It was a very small town, like really small town. But right there in the center of town, there's a place called the Dunlop Yard, and Mitch Rosell performed there, which I saw Mitch play at the Franklin Theater about I don't know, 3 maybe a month ago or so, and he was fantastic. He was really good, and he played here last night, just him and his guitar, and he did. It was supposed to be an hour and a half show. He played a 2-hour show, no break. He did not come off that stage for the 2 hours. He didn't have any intermission or anything, and he left it all on the stage. I mean, he performed so well. His vocals were just he's so well rehearsed in his songs and his guitar playing and everything. And that's the talent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm paying nothing to go see him, and it's very little money that we're paying to go see it. I mean, you and I, George, I don't know, you remember going back to the bottom line back in the days.
Yes.
We would pay what, $12?
Hmm.
Like $12, $15 to
Yeah.
go see like the Buddy Rich band with like Dave Weckl, and we would see we saw John McLaughlin perform there
Yeah.
with
With Dennis Chambers.
Dennis Chambers.
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's like you these people that I see that's standing online paying thousands and thousands of dollars for some of these artists that are, so produced
Yeah.
by machines and a group of like a corporation. And then you see Mitch Rosell up there by himself with songs that he wrote on his own by himself or with a co-writer. Like a lot here in Nashville, there's a lot of co-writers with someone, but it was just them together writing this song. And here's the song to present. They're all, he wrote 4 songs for Garth Brooks. One of them went to #1, another one went to #2. Very successful guy. And here he is, and I'm and then I got to meet him afterwards, and my wife and I took a photo with him, and we got to chat a little bit, and that is for me, that's the artist, that's the
Yes.
music. You know what I
Agreed.
mean? That's the music industry. Why I that's why I love Rick Beato, because he will talk about things like that. We'll
Exactly.
talk about
Agreed.
those kinds of stories. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Um, don't badmouth Creed when your band is opening for them and they're in the back of the room watching your. Oh yeah,
That's the
watching
number
your
one
bar.
Beato rule.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't badmouth anyone. Honestly, you know what I mean. Like, I would say a song is bad, but I won't go out there, and make a note of it, or I won't make a post.
Right.
Hey everyone, here's the worst song ever. No, I'm just not going to listen to that song. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I'm not going to knock an artist for doing what they're doing. Um, the industry and the artist are two different things, right? The industry is a calculated, formulated group of men and women that are in the business of molding what they think the people want to hear.
Right.
Then behind that, there's agendas and there's ideologies that are also being enforced in ways, and that's all conspiracy stuff, and people can say whatever they want. But there's that is what's being pushed out,
Hmm.
because I listen to the top 10, and I listen to what's happening now. I like to stay current with what's going on, and that's how I found Mitch. Mitch is a young guy. He's going to be around for 50 years making music. You know what I mean? Um, because I listen to these young guys, and but the ones that I gravitate towards are the ones that have sincerity,
Yeah.
in their music, and that to me is where the power lies. The industry, the groups of men and women that, they're in the business of gambling, right? They're gambling. They think people want to hear this. They have focus groups, and this song that this person put out is really popular right now. Let's get this artist to do a song similar to that, because it seems like this is really gonna go. And let's just keep pumping the same stuff, because that's what seems people really like this stuff. That's the system. But I'm in Nashville. I'll go down on any given night, anywhere in Nashville, and I'm gonna be blown away by a singer, songwriter, a true talent that will, you know, that you sit there and you wonder, why aren't they in this pile of these with these people?
Yeah.
And it's probably because they're too original. They're or they're not controllable. Sometimes the artists are some of these artists, you tell them what to do and they'll do it.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna make you famous. All you got to do is sing this, do this, dress like this, get over here and do that. That's the industry. You know what I mean? So I always tell young artists, don't be in the music industry. Just make your music and tell people about it.
I never heard you opened my eyes to that, because I guess I had it in the back of my head, but I never really heard it said that way, that they are in the business of gambling.
Yeah,
Because and you're right, they are. They are. It's like they're trying to hit that they're hitting that slot machine.
yeah, they hit
See
it
if
once.
yes.
Somebody hit it once.
Somebody hit it once, and now they want to keep
Now
recreating
they're
that.
putting all their pennies and all their chips are on that again.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And then at the same time, you also have the young artists who get swallowed up by that, who also have that same mentality.
Yeah,
Okay, you produced, XYZ. I can get there too,
right.
regardless of whether it's my music or if I'm actually a good musician or whatever. So, and you can get swallowed up into that whole lottery mentality and all that type of stuff. So, but it's very interesting. But that's one piece. The second thing I want to mention now, and I think I guess I'm a little angry at the music industry because I'm a little bit different. Whereas I really don't focus on what's going on today. I don't. I haven't done it in a while. I think part of it is and it's just my preference. I prefer musicianship over everything else. Okay. And so, again, great artists out there. Lady Gaga, who has amazing hits, is one of the most talented musicians out there, right? She's amazing, right? But she's got great pop hits, okay? But I understand the talent that it took her to do that, okay? But then there are other artists out there who I say I don't understand why they're there, but yet people love them and they're in the top one, okay? So I have an anger in that where I'm like, I resent it a little bit because number one, I feel this, again, this is my personal preference. I feel that musicians are losing money in that they're the session guys, which I have done that in the past, have lost a lot of work because of that. I feel that exactly that thing, that lottery mentality and let's see what sticks and all this and blah 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 and the trends and all that. And regardless of if there's musicians in there or not, you could just press a button now and boom, there it is. So you don't need those people, and I and also melody and chord structures and melody lines and all that have disappeared in my opinion. Even bridges have disappeared.
It's out there. It's
I
out
mean,
there.
yeah, I'm not, again, it's out
Yeah.
there, but it's not out there.
Yeah, it's
Meaning
not
that
in-
and we talked
it's
about this
on
before.
radio and
Correct.
that.
So you have to, again, just like the Mitch Rosells and the people that you have met recently, and those folks have that, right? They are the guys that 20, 30 years ago we were listening to, right? Those hardcore musicians who are amazing songwriters, amazing musicians, but I guess I'm upset that that the mainstream music industry has kind of discounted those people. That they've kind of just pushed them aside.
Well, like I said, it's not a new thing.
No, it's not. It's
Right.
not, because it has happened in
Yeah.
every trend, right?
Every decade,
There's a trend.
if you
Yes.
go we can go to the 50s with the doo-wop. One doo-wop group came out, and suddenly you had the Four Tops, the Temptations, the all the different, and then that faded, right? And then you had in the 60s, you had the Beatles come up. Well, now everybody's got to do the Beatles. So now you had all these Beatle-ish groups come out. The Stones also.
Well, the 70s were really created by the Beatles, because
Right.
all those British bands that came out, that was all the Beatles.
Right. And that was because of the Beatles. All these British bands came out and people started paying attention to the bands, including, you can stick Jimi Hendrix in there too, because he was founded in England.
That's right.
So he that whole the way that genre of music shaped itself, right, developed, and everyone was trying to capitalize on that. So Led Zeppelin, the Stones, the Who,
Yeah.
the Doors,
Right.
all these bands, right? Then you had the 80s, right, where in the beginning you had the punk scene, right? So you had all these, the Ramones, the Police, Blondie, the Sex Pistols, all these bands kind of early on in the late 70s to early 80s, and then that kind of faded. So every block of music that becomes, somebody hears something and the audiences are the ones that really will make the final decision. They'll say,
True.
this is actually what we want to hear, and this is what we like now. So everyone goes, oh, I guess we should just flood them with this. So they start
Correct.
flooding the radio, because again, it's money, it's a gambling thing, and they got to
course.
keep the radio stations going. They got to keep all the stuff, the lights on. So they just flood that. 80s, you had the hair bands, and how many hair bands were there? I mean, hundreds and hundreds, right? Thousands maybe. Then you had the 90s where Nirvana came in. Then we had the grunge thing where everybody was like, boom, boom, boom. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all the Alice in Chains, all the bands that we mentioned. Then that gets put out there, and so every, it happened. Then you had the boy bands. Remember the boy bands? How many boy bands were at one time? We had Boys to Men, Backstreet Boys, Boys to Boys, Boysy Boysy, There was Boy Touch Boy, Boy Under Boy, all the boy bands that would come out, right? NSYNC was probably the biggest, right? They all came out in that same era, and then they kind of faded away again. Then you have rock bands again. So the music industry, Boy Meets Boy, Boy Meets Boy, a great band.
There was a Boy Meets Girl band, by the way.
Was there really?
Yes, there was. Yes,
Well, at least it was Boy Meets Girl.
they had I think one big hit, but
So
yeah, you're right. There is the only thing I would say though about this time, this era, is that I don't think you're ever going to have a Nirvana and a Soundgarden. I don't think
well,
I don't think that's ever going to be what it was back then. Back
we
then,
don't know what, because like Elvis, right? Elvis was a phenomenon, right?
right?
He was a phenomenon. I mean, it was like nobody saw anything like that. That's never going to happen again. And then Michael Jackson happened, right? And then it was like, oh, okay, well now that's never going to happen again, and probably won't, not to the level that Michael brought it to. But I think we don't know, what the levels of a band can bring. I mean, the Beatles were it, right? But the Beatles stopped touring and just went into the studio for the rest of the records. But they
But
didn't
you
really
could,
tour.
but you can compare Elvis to who would be like Elvis today, okay? Or let's say not Elvis the person, but let's say like who's
Like
on
the
a level of
caliber.
who's like the caliber of an Elvis, like a Taylor Swift, a Lady Gaga. Those would be like the Elvises type of today, right? Those are always going to exist, right? There's always going to be an artist that comes out and just completely blows everything away. What
But
I'm saying is the
different, because Elvis and Michael Jackson did revolutionary things. The artists
correct.
you mentioned did not.
They're not
They're
correct.
big, but
Correct.
they're
And
different
this is
industries.
where they've been compared to some of those people, which I completely take.
Probably only because of either maybe numbers,
We'll talk about that, by the way.
like how many, Elvis Presley is still streaming high on,
Yes, agreed,
what I mean?
agreed.
So,
And Nirvana is too.
and
But
so is
what
Nirvana. Nirvana is one of the huge.
but what I'm saying is that the concept of Nirvana, if you think about Nirvana for a second, I mean, what made them great was number one because they were the anti-establishment, fight grunge, stripped down raw type of sound. It was three guys with three instruments. That was it. There was nothing to it. With everything that's out now and how easy it is to make music now, I don't think you could ever have three guys that are so stripped down that would completely revolutionize music again. I don't
I
think
don't
that
know
would
if
ever happen again
I don't know if it'll revolutionize
because
music.
that's what they did back then.
Yeah, I think, and
I don't think they would be allowed to.
I don't know if they revolutionized it.
I mean,
I think they
they created something that wasn't there.
they redirected where things were into an area that they hadn't been in before.
Yeah, but there was an anger about them,
There was
meaning that
anger about it.
there was
That
there was
whole era.
it was a movement, really,
It was a
right?
movement, yeah, yeah. But you could say it was a movement almost like in the '60s. Was a movement. A lot of those bands, especially during the Woodstock years, all those Woodstock bands were a movement: love, peace, and rock and roll.
Right, right.
Or, and that was kind of like and that was, people said that would never happen again. Woodstock would never happen again, and it didn't. The second time was a disaster. But it's not. It's something like that might happen again. But we're talking about technology.
That's what I'm saying. That technology wouldn't. I don't think
Right.
technology would ever allow that again.
I think that because AI, everyone's talking about AI, and yes, you can just generate a whole complete song, but there's something that AI will never have, no matter what, and that's spirit and soul and the ability to actually communicate a true story. So, like Mitch Rosell, no, if you listen to his songwriting, it's so good
Agree.
because he's telling a real life story of a human being. And an AI is only going to draw from those stories that have already been told by humans, and it's going to put them together in a way that's not going to communicate, because you cannot communicate with a robot cannot communicate spiritually
Correct. But
to-
I don't think that today's scene is going to care. I think that if they can generate an
this is
AI,
why
if they can generate an AI song, okay,
they
I
have.
think right, they have, well, they do, but I'm saying that if AI becomes a normal thing on music,
Right.
on radio or whatever radio streaming it is, okay, it becomes number one. The young kids are going to love it. They don't care about who's playing in it.
It's true. And this is where something has to collapse.
Correct.
Something
Exactly.
has to collapse
Right.
because, and this is why I still think Rick Beato and what he's doing is so important
Exactly.
because he's keeping this alive, keeping music
Right.
alive. He's keeping the idea of creating with a piece of paper and a pen and an instrument.
Right.
That is never going to go away. But because if someone thinks that they can make more money using AI fake stuff, meaning the ones that are controlling are going to do it because the bottom line is the bottom line,
That's
and
right.
because most of these companies are publicly traded companies. So just like we always talk about publicly traded companies, right? Whether you're selling drugs or you're selling mugs or you're selling donuts, right? The only way you make more money is by selling more drugs, more cups, mugs, or
right.
more donuts, right? That's the only way you do that. So if AI is making them more money, they will do that. But the what we talk about, and we say this almost on every episode about how many streams are old streams. People are streaming old music.
Yeah.
30+ year music is the most streamed online that's happening right now. Why? Because that was made by real people.
Yeah.
Those were made by real people.
Exactly.
The current stuff, even the current stuff, and there's artists out there that I love that are no. I love Adele. I think Adele she's just incredible. She's one of the greatest singers. She's one of the most powerful singers.
Yeah.
And I think she's got great songwriting skills. She's got great melodic skills. She's just a great talent overall. So for me, Adele is one of those people that I would put on top of everything, right?
Agree.
So now if you get a hold of somebody like I'm on my show.
The FBI is coming.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go ahead, and we'll talk afterwards because I'm on my show.
No, it's after 8.
No,
All right, so I'm sorry, everybody. I have people here. All right, so this is why I have to get out of here. And I don't mean leave my family. I mean get my office
I'm
again.
going to take that clip.
Remember when you said you were going to leave your family? You remember when you did it? Yeah, I need you to stop and delete that.
It's on the front of the paper. John Soto leaving his family.
Like, anyway, so sorry everybody, I just got to do one thing here. But so anyway, Adele being like for me one of the greatest singers, that cannot be AI'd.
Correct. Agreed.
You know what I mean? That
Absolutely.
cannot be AI'd.
100%.
So I think there's artists out there, John Mayer
Yes.
cannot be AI. John Mayer is a great songwriter, great singer. And I'm talking about these particular ones because you could say Lady Gaga, but Lady Gaga is very pop. She's very she's so massive, It's same thing with Taylor Swift, that she's not she's an entity now. She's a corporation.
And their musicianship gets a little bit hidden.
Yeah,
because of how big they are.
Yeah, and also because I think that they're not, Adele's phrasing, other than like Frank Sinatra, I don't know any other singer that has that sing. I mean, Frank Sinatra to me is the greatest singer of all time. Just as far as his ability his phrasing, his communication, his ability he's the greatest. But Adele, to me, it's close.
I agree.
I mean, he is unbelievable,
100%.
So, John Mayer, I think when it comes to John Mayer, he is our generation, what we would see Jimi Hendrix and Jeff Beck and all those great, he is our generation that,
Yeah.
the guy's like in his 40s, guy's gonna be playing for another 40 years. You know what I mean? It's like, so that to me is that, so I look at those people that those things cannot be AI'd,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and
Right.
I still think that if you have an AI generated system, computer song, that um it will never compare to a John Mayer who sat down with a pen and paper and his guitar and wrote a song. And that is the hope that we have. And with
Right.
people like Rick Beato showing you
Yes.
how to do it, how it was done, backstories of artists, what makes a song great, the breakdowns, all that. When you have guys like that doing it, that's the salvation and that's the future of music. All this other stuff is a generated system of gambling that hopes that it can take advantage of some artists that are willing to give up their culitos in order for a moment of fame and
Yeah.
fortune,
Yeah.
and
You're right.
they're out there by a lot. And there's some people that are just so desperate to be famous that they would do whatever. I mean, look at the Milli Vanilli story, which is tragic story, right? But so wanted to be famous that they would do whatever it takes to be famous. Now we have TikTok stars lip syncing every day getting paid, but that's another story. I'm sure they're not happy about that. But my point is that um, no matter what technology does, the I go to Guitar Center, and one of the greatest joys that I see at Guitar Center, or if I went to Sam or whatever guitar store I go to, is young people, and by young I mean they can be teens to 20s, going in there to get their new instrument, to
Mm.
start playing an instrument.
Hmm.
More guitars were sold during the pandemic than ever before.
That's right.
Music is fine. It's technology and that group of cells that just wants to squeeze money and energy out of it. And also they squeeze the artist, because now the artist is on Spotify. You need like 1 billion streams in order to make a couple of bucks,
Yeah.
and those kinds of things. Don't do it. I tell people, learn about the blockchain, learn about protecting your own music, build a website that can host your own music,
Right.
go out and play, and then put maybe one song on Spotify and let people come to you and get your music from you, because you're the source. You're the one that should be that you should that people should be coming to. They shouldn't be going to I mean, George and I didn't go to a thing to listen to music. We went and bought the record.
Right.
We
Yeah.
came home and we put it on
That's
and we
right.
played it. We didn't go to a device to listen to a song. We never
True.
did that.
True.
Even the radio, if you turn the radio on, there's ads. You know what I mean? And the radio, we listen to the radio, and but really when we heard a song that we wanted, well, we had to listen to the radio all day long to see if they're going to play it again. Maybe not. So what do? You go buy it. You go buy the damn song. That is still going to be powerful. And I think we're going to continue going in that direction. I think that the AI thing it is going to create a huge mess. It's going to be big. It's going to make a lot of money for people. But in the long run, I tell people, keep your integrity, and it's gonna work out. Also, and I'll end with this: the groups of people that are sincere in making their music and understand that AI is a farce and nothing more than just zeros and ones pretending to be human, right? That when those group of people that understand that and that will play their instruments, the Mitch Rosells, the George Dukas, the all the different artists that I've met here, the Soul Chest, the band that I met here, my band that I play with now, Mockingbird Canyon Road, all these bands, we understand that that's the important thing. If we gather and we come together, that goes away, because the people that are listening to that don't really have money. They're listening to that because they don't want to go spend any money.
Right.
They don't want to spend, I drove 2 hours to go see Mitch Rosell and paid, right? When someone could just go onto their Spotify and just play a song and just listen to it in and in their house.
That's a good
You
point.
know what I mean? That part of what I did is the salvation.
Agreed.
So all right, folks. So I apologize. I got disrupted there in my thoughts. I think I got out what I wanted to say. But my show is 1 hour. If it gets 1 hour, I have no time. George and I decided that we are just going to talk until we're done. But if it's 8 o'clock, they think I'm as soon as the 8 o'clock hits that this just cuts off, and I go
AI would do it.
right. Yeah, I would just cut me off. What are you doing, John? Why are you still on? It's 8:01, John. That's not nice, John. George, artist blueprint. So, all right, folks. Well, we Rick Beato, please check him out. He is definitely a someone who's changing the game. Very entertaining shows and gets right to the point of things, and I really like that too. It's not a lot of fluff stuff, there's not a lot of effects, and it's literally just him, and he's talking about music, and he has a guest, and it's just right to the point, which I like that, so it's really cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you very much. We will see you next week. I think this will still be the Artist Blueprint next week. It might be the John Henry Soto show. We don't know exactly yet what is happening, but we're getting some new information here. Some new information is coming in. The numbers are in, and it looks like numbers are coming in, and it looks like, hold on, John Henry Soto has won. He is your new president.
I'm going to challenge that.
Yeah. I just got off the phone with John Henry Soto, and I congratulated him. He will be getting a notification from my attorneys where we will challenge this. How did it go from... Yeah, I was going to say it was stolen. How did it go from me being up by 10% and at 2 o'clock in the morning, he's up by 20? How did this happen, ladies and gentlemen? It's a travesty. Sean Manuel, thank you, brother. Love you too. John said, love you guys. He says, it was stolen.
You're the best, Sean.
Appreciate it. Sean is actually one of the reasons why music is going to go, because it's going to continue. It's going to go well. And it's
Agreed.
flourish because of people like Sean Manuel. He's a young guy doing it the right way, and he's got good integrity. And it's a great human being, him and his whole family. All right, folks, thank you very much. We will see you all next week. For George Batista, I'm John Henry Soto, all of us here at the Artist Blueprint. Take care, and as always...